Well, as promised in the last one, my Sony BETACAM UVW1400 has been giving me some issues, namely when trying to load the large tapes. I had it working, hadn't used it for a while, went to use it, and it wouldn't accept a large tape. So we're going to look at it and see why it's not doing it, and then I'm going to get into some of the nitty-gritty of how this thing works, and we'll do some demos. And I've got several tapes I've done recorded in pure component format. We'll take a look at the different cameras and how they look. Once again, I'm working on my BETACAM deck. This is a UVW1400, and mine has lately, it doesn't get a lot of use. That's probably why it's sticking again. But when I go to load the large cassette, it doesn't load. And that's because the gears that operate the mechanism to switch between the small and the large cassettes have frozen on it, or are out of time. We're going to see if we can get that to be resolved today. It used to be that it would stick once in a while and then it would be fine. But now it appears to be sticking on a more regular basis. So we'll remove the cassette elevator. As you can remember, I lubricated this before because it was all gummed up. And it does tend to stick a bit. If I just do that, it's fine. But it tends to stick. So I have a feeling that one of these gears is out of phase. And I think it might be this one over here. But let's just watch what happens as they move. When they move fine. Nothing's sticking now. This turns very smoothly. And going back the other way for the smaller tapes, the arms swing in. But I think one is arriving a little bit before the other. I think this one's a little bit late. Now what should happen here is it shouldn't have to go like that. See, now they move all the way into position and they stop there, but I think that they probably should already have been in that position before. Like while this is in the free running rotation, these already should have been locked in place like that. So I don't know whether it's a gear tooth that's broken or whether it's just out of time. It might be these gears here that we see. They're not quite timed right. I mean, it works fine. It's just that when I want to load a large cassette, I would have to pop the top and flip this little gear to unjam it, and then it would load the large tapes fine. And it would go back to a small tape, no problem. Right, see now they unlock. I just get the sneaking suspicion that when they're in this position here, that they should lock all the way in like it just did. This time it locked all the way in like it's supposed to. Huh. Watch, I'll throw the basket back in. We'll load and unload a few tapes. See if it's sticking still. So the cassette mechanism goes back in. Power the unit up. Loads the cassette just fine and goes into play, no problemo. I'll load a small tape. And you'll see the real hubs pull in for the small tape. Small tape loads. Small tape plays perfect. Eject. See if it'll go back to the large reels again, or will it stick? Yeah, see, now it's working. So I don't know, well, just that was just stuck there. This tends to happen on these machines. If they haven't been used in a little while, things tend to stick. Back to a small cassette. There they go. Everything's playing. And it's working again. So what's the take on this? When you have these machines, do use them, because if you don't use them, they will have a tendency to, I got a head that just clogged up there, just pushing the head cleaning wheel. If you don't use them, they will have a tendency to not work. If you've got this old gear, even if you're not using it on a regular basis, have a couple tapes handy and just throw a tape in and let it play. Like, I'm going to record some stuff. I mean, I've got a couple big tapes that were given to me, which I can use for playback. Or I can just, and I've got a couple blank big tapes, maybe I'll record some stuff on them. And that way, just maybe once a month, I'm just going to throw it in and let it load and unload a couple times. Because that's the way you keep this stuff working. This equipment's all getting to be very old these days. And it does not like to sit around. If you let it sit around, it's going to break. It's as simple as that. So even if you're not planning on using it, as I say, run it for a few minutes. Run a tape through once a month, minimum. And that way you'll keep your old vintage gear working for years and years. Now this one's working again, I'm happy. I'm going to run some tapes through this because I haven't used it in a few months. I don't use the BETACAM decks every day. I use my VHS and High 8 and Digital 8 players every day. Like they're in constant use because that's what the majority of my transfer work is. It's transferring over consumer tapes. I don't get a lot of use for the 3/4. I do some 3/4 and I do some BETACAM SP, but it's not on a daily basis. I might get a couple of BETACAM tapes a year. When I get them, I'll usually get a bunch. Like I'll get a 20 or 30 tapes to do, but I'm not getting them every day. It's usually someone who's been in the business and they've left the business and they've found some tapes that they've had and they don't have the equipment to play it, so they bring them to me and I transfer them over, and then the equipment just sits there and it doesn't get turned on for for months at a time. And that's what we have to do. We have to turn this equipment on and we have to use it on a regular basis. Otherwise, you're going to be constantly servicing it. Every time you go to use it, you're going to have to service it. Better just to keep things working and not have to service it every time you turn it on. Anyway, that was a real easy one. I just had to reposition those arms. They were sticking. And now they're not. And I did lube them before, but even at that, they still stuck a bit. So there you go. We're back in business. So now I'm into the control room here, and I'm recording on one of these large tapes. This is actually a Digi-Beta tape. I had to make it compatible with BETACAM SP, because it's the same tape, it's just a different length. And they put different detection holes. I'm just recording some content on here, so I have a test tape. This is what I'm recording. Because it's non-reference video, I get the black line. But rest assured, when it plays back, that will not be there. I'm just playing back a recording of my own aquarium, which I used to have. And this has been recorded in HD. This recording is an HD recording, but it's outputting as a RGB signal from my media player. Currently playing on this little box here. And as you can see, I've got component video going out from this into the back of the BETACAM. So RGB. And then the audio is over here. That's just a composite out for my monitor. but this is being recorded in full component video. I get the warning here, no reference, because I don't have a reference video signal, which is perfectly normal because I'm recording a non-reference signal. If I had it plugged into a black reference generator, for example, in a television station environment, for example, I'd have a black reference going in and all my videos would be referenced to the station sync, which we don't have here. So this is perfectly normal, and then we get the picture that, well, is showing half of a frame right now. Just like that. But once again, once it's done, everything is fine. I used to experience this when I was shooting news, and I would go in with a high 8 tape, and they would dump it over to beta, and they would just unplug the machine or patch it straight in with no studio reference, and it would look like that when they made the recording. Of course, when they play it back, it's fine. Now, one probably wonders, how do the digi-beta tapes differ from the regular SP tapes? Well, it's the detection holes on the bottom. Beta SP have this configuration on the bottom, and the Digi have different holes punched, and we have to make them the same so that it will recognize the tape. Otherwise, it's just going to kick the tape out. Fortunately, it's not too hard to punch that extra hole so that it looks the same. But there's another difference you see on the BETACAM SP over here. Here is our record lockout tab, and it's in a different position on the Digi-Beta. If we notice, the Digi-Beta tape has a hole there where the red lockout would be for, you push this tab up so you don't accidentally record. And on Digi-Beta, it's back here. And they've got a hole punched here, which on an SP machine will show record inhibit. Now that is done intentionally. And that's because if you had a recording in digital beta, in Digi-Betacam, and you accidentally put the tape into an SP machine, it might have a Digi-Beta recording on it, which obviously you're not able to play back. It would show up as nothing on the screen. So they put that, they moved the location of the record inhibit tab down a little bit for the Digi-Beta cassette and put a hole on, or where the record inhibit would be on an SP tape, so that if you load one of these tapes into an SP machine, even if you've punched the holes to tell it that it's an SP tape, it still won't record. You have to cover this with Scotch tape, and then it'll record just fine. Just thought you guys might like to know that, especially since people are giving away these tapes. I got these tapes for free. I got a whole bunch of large tapes just for free. I don't know if there was anything in Digi-Beta on it. I don't care. I'll just record over it. I'm just going to use it as a test tape for my analog machine so I can run something through it once in a while. And that's how I make the recording work. Just punch the tab. I got some small tapes as well. The small tapes will probably go in my SX camera for testing that and so forth. And I'll just use the large tapes on this and a small tape, so I can load up a large and a small and run this thing, a couple times a month just to make sure that it continues to perform flawlessly. If we look at the tapes from the top view, they're identical. There is a difference, however, in the tape length. And this is a 60 BETACAM SP, and you'll notice it's got 1,499 feet, 457 meters. This is a 60-minute SP tape for analog. Here's a 64-minute tape for digital, and you'll notice it has 382 meters, or 1,253 feet. So obviously the 64 beta tape, the Digi-Beta tape that I'm recording in SP is going to run obviously shorter in time. It's not going to run 64 minutes. It's going to run probably closer to about 50 minutes. Well, 1,253 feet versus almost 1,500. It's 1,499. So it's a little bit shorter. It's going to run shorter than 60 minutes, that's for sure. But just to give you an idea how much these tapes cost, this is the 90-minute Beta SP, $50.23 from Cine AV, whoever that was, where this came from. That could be a company in the States. That could be $50.23 US is what this tape originally cost. Don't know. Could be Canadian. I don't know where this tape came from. It was given to me, so I don't know whether it came from an American supplier or Canadian. But this stuff was relatively expensive when you consider what back in the day a Super VHS tape cost you, what, maybe $5, $6. Regular VHS tapes were at the end there down to less than $1 at the wholesale level. You could get them $1.99 retail, $2, $3 for a retail. When you look at the difference, yeah, this stuff was quite expensive, but then again, it is metal tape, so you are paying for the quality, and it's full broadcast, so yeah, you're paying a little bit more for this stuff. Here are a couple of other, these are the small tapes. Look at this, 200 million tape, 728 feet, 222 meters. This is the same as an L750, and an L750, I think the consumer one had 750 feet of tape. The BETACAM had 728, 30 minute load. The SX version, this is the BETACAM SX, 32 minutes. It was 407 feet. So that was less than an L500 in terms of length, and it did 32 minutes because the BETACAM SX ran at a slower speed. SX, of course, is digital. It had this bright yellow cassette, and you can see it's got a relatively short load of tape on here. But that was the SX for the SX camera. SX camera, of course, could record on SP tapes as well. It was compatible with the SP tapes, but they made these special ones that were shorter and had the time more accurate. The 30-minute one, the 30-minute SP tape will run a lot longer than 30 minutes on an SX camera. Let's take a look at the different sizes of cassettes here. So the yellow one here is a Beta tape. It's the same size as Betamax. It's identical. This will fit in a Betamax machine. This is the Betamax size cassette and BETACAM small that went in the cameras. Under that is a VHS tape. As you can see, the VHS tape is a little bit bigger than Beta, and they always were. Right? That's a VHS tape. Under the VHS tape is a 3/4 inch U-matic tape. As you can see how much bigger the 3/4 inch tape is than the VHS tape. We'll remove the VHS tape, and under this one sits the BETACAM 90-minute large tape. So this is the 3/4 inch tape, and there's the BETACAM large. It was the largest of the cassettes. If we lay them down side by side, you'll see how much bigger. It's not as high because it's a 1/2 inch tape versus a 3/4 inch tape. And this is the 90-minute tape. They could do 60 minutes. This is a 30-minute. This one, as you see, the tape goes from right to left on U-matic. And this is the Beta tape. And then when we look at the VHS, that was your VHS tape, and your Betamax tape was much, much smaller. Those are the 4 sizes of tape. If we look at the front of the tape here, you'll notice that the opening where the tape gets extracted is the same for the large tape. So this other part over here, there's nothing there. It's just plastic in behind here. The lid opens the front here, and the tape is extracted by the same mechanism as it is with the smaller tapes. And they did the same thing on the DV format. So there's a mini DV tape compared to a full-size DV tape. This one's 186 minutes, although they did go up as high as, I think, 240 minutes. This is a 60-minute. But if we look on the back side of these tapes, it's exactly the same. You see? Yes, the reels are further apart, so the machine had to adjust the spools, the spindles. But if we look at the actual tape window where the tape is extracted, it's the same on both. That way the machine could accept either tape, and it did not have to modify the tape transport. All it had to do was move the tape spindles out for the larger tape, which is exactly what they did. They learned a lot from the BETACAM format. As this tape continues to record, we're almost done. Once it's finished, I'll rewind it and play it back so you guys can see it. Alright, the tape's just done. I just stopped it. We'll play it back here. At the end of the tape, let's see how long it goes before it rewinds. Remember that this was the, what was it, the 64-minute digital tape that is being recorded in analog mode, and it just kind of went into rewind here. I stopped it, but we'll see here. Where does it go to? Cat is in here meowing at me. There we go. 53 minutes and 37 seconds. That's what it went to. There we go. There we go. So that's the length of a 64-minute Digi-Beta tape when recorded in SP. Here it is, rewinding now. Kind of a noisy cassette, isn't it? Cat wants to be on camera. You're annoying. You know that? You are annoying. Yeah, now you're camera shy. Now that the camera's on you, you're camera shy. This is work I've got to do. I've got all these tapes to transfer. Cat wants to say hi. Cat drives me crazy when I'm trying to work. Cat will not give me the time of day except for when I want to work. She's in here at my feet driving me crazy all day long. Okay, rewinding back. It gets back to the beginning. And we'll press play. There we go. We're back at the beginning. Play. There it is. You can't get a more flawless playback of analog than this machine is capable of. It's just beautiful. This is a direct capture. This recording was of my aquarium. This was recorded in high definition on one of my SD cameras. I forget which one. Might have been a TX100, little Sony pocket camera. I think it was recorded in 60p, 1080p 60. But I edited this together, and this was saved onto a memory stick, USB. This is what was playing on the little media player. And I output it as an analog component signal, red, green, blue. That's a dropout, by the way, on a beta tape. Output it as an analog signal, recorded it on BETACAM SP using the component input. I then rewound the tape and played it back and captured it on my component capture, which then converts it back to high definition. So this started out as a 1080. At 60, it was converted down to 480i. The original source was 1080p. The edited version was 1080p. It was converted down to 480i as a component signal, recorded onto BETACAM SP, played back over component, and captured back into 1080p from the original recording. Now this recording, this is my first aquarium. This is the 37-gallon. The other one was a 90-gallon with a sump and everything. This is my first saltwater aquarium that I set up in 2006. This was recorded on an HDV tape. This is actually the original HDV tape. The sound that I'm putting on here is just dubbed in after. This was shot 1080i, outputting from my tape, the original HDV tape, outputting it as a 480i signal from the player, from the HDV player, going to BETACAM SP. This was the HDR FX1 camera right off of the original tape, no editing. So this is as good as that 3 CCD camera, good a picture as it can produce, straight off the tape. Converted down to 480i and then back up to 1080p. This is the same camera. This is the Vancouver Aquarium. I shot this with that same camera, the FX1 3-chip HDV camera. This tape was edited and it was sent back to HDV. So into the computer, but there's no recompression. The MPEG-2 tape was taken in, it was edited, and it was sent back out to HDV. The HDV tape was played. It was output as 480i over component, recorded onto the BETACAM deck, then back to the capture card and recaptured and converted back to 1080p. This gives a pretty good representation of how good the component video format was on Beta SP. The color is clear, there's no smear, unlike the composite versions that were used on VHS, Betamax, 8mm, high 8, Super VHS. They were quite low resolution in terms of the color quality. That looks bad because I'm shooting through thick glass, so I'm getting well, it's fooling the prism. That's why it looks like registration error around those curls at the bottom. That's actually the light bending as it's going through the prism. A single CCD or single CMOS camera, you wouldn't get that phenomenon, but you do on the 3 CCD. The shot that's going to follow this is an older tape that was shot on a DCR VX1000 in standard definition DV. You should notice the color saturation is not as good off of that. That's because HDV, the color space is 420, but DV, the color space is 411. And when I switch over to that one for the last shot before closing this off, you should notice the color is not as good. So let's go take a look at the footage from a DV tape. And finally, we have the 4x3 video from the DCR VX1000. This was the first of the 3-chip Sony Handycams. This was the first DV camera that Sony made. It was my first DV camera. And yes, you can see it's not quite as sharp. Well, you really shouldn't notice it because it's still 480i. We didn't have to convert it down from 1080 down to 480. This is native 480 that was recorded using component outputs onto the analog Beta SP, and then it was output as a component signal and captured and converted up to 1080p. But because it was 4x3 video, well, you get a 4x3 output. But I think you'll notice, I don't know if it shows up that well, but the colors on the fish, especially the yellows and reds and so forth, even the greens, don't look quite as enhanced as they do on the footage from the HDV camera or from the little TX100. And that's because of color space. DV had a color space of 411, which had half the amount of color that the HDV tape and the full digital from the DV or the digital camera had. Anyway, I just figured I'd throw this in there to show how good the analog recording was. This was analog recording at its finest, and none of the consumer formats could touch it. It's full broadcast quality. That's why the 1/2-inch Betacam tape format replaced 1-inch and 3/4 inch in production and broadcast. It was that good. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.